My roommate spread malicious rumors about me, so I immediately took screenshots and sent them to my dad. From that day on, she could forget about getting another dime of support from my family. I stepped into my dad's Rolls-Royce, and my roommate turned around and snapped a picture, posting it on the campus forum with nasty comments. She has no shame, selling her body for money. Such a young age, already chasing after being a mistress. I quickly took screenshots of those messages and sent them to my dad. If my parents ever supported her again, it would be my fault one. My parents had sponsored quite a few underprivileged students from rural areas, and Sophia was one of them. They'd heard she was a determined and hardworking girl with good grades. Sophia had said she wanted to take care of uncle and auntie, and specifically applied to a university near us. My parents genuinely liked her and even suggested she stay at our home on weekends while living on campus during the week. Since I was attending university out of town and our house was empty, I agreed without giving it much thought. For 3 years, my parents couldn't stop praising her how thoughtful and diligent she was. I'd heard it so much I could practically recite it in my sleep. To see what she was really like, I filed for an exchange program to study at her school. The day I moved into her dorm, Sophia was busy handing out bags and scarves to the other roommates. My bag, however, was tossed aside casually for someone else to pick up. The roommates were ecstatic. "Sophie, meeting you is the luckiest thing that's ever happened to us. We're so blessed." Sophia waved her hand dismissively and said, "Oh, these are just older styles. I don't like them anymore. If you like them, take them. My family said they'd buy me new ones anyway." Her words irritated me. "You don't like them, yet you take my bag without asking. So now that you're living in my house, all my belongings automatically become yours, huh? And what's this about your family buying you new things? Since when did you have a family like mine? I'm my parents' only child. Even though we're well off, I've never been wasteful with money. Those bags and scarves were gifts from my relatives. They weren't really my style, so I'd stored them away unopened in the house's storage room. A while back, my mom called and asked if she could gift them to Sophia. Without hesitating, I agreed. I didn't mind my mom giving them to her, and I didn't care how Sophia chose to handle them. But hearing her call my parents family was infuriating. "Those gifts were from your family," I said. "You don't like them, so you give them away to your friends. How do you think they'd feel if they knew?" The room went silent. One roommate, holding the bag she'd just received, had trembling hands. Sophia frowned and said, "Mind your own business. My family gave me those things, so how I deal with them is up to me." Fair point, but what if they're not actually your family? Before I could retort, she hit me with something even more cutting. "I think you're just jealous," she sneered. "I didn't give you any, but if you apologize and admit you were blinded by ignorance, maybe next time I'll consider giving you one of my used bags." One roommate immediately chimed in, "Exactly, you're totally jealous. Look at you, dressed so poorly. You probably don't even know these brands, huh?" "Some people, jealousy is a sickness and it needs treatment," another added. Sophia glanced at me and smirked, saying, "I won't stoop to her level. After all, not everyone is as blessed as I am. Being born into a good family is a skill." "Oh, so your family business must be thriving." Sophia ignored me entirely, but the roommates eagerly jumped in to explain. "So you're new here and don't know? Last year, the Liu Corporation went public. That's Sophia's family business, and she's their only heir compared to her. These bags and scarves are nothing. The Liu Corporation did go public last year, and yes, there's only one heir, me. Since when did Sophia replace me? 2. Right at that moment, my mom sent me a text. "Lily, have you met Sophia yet? Isn't she easy to get along with?" I could almost picture the smile on my mom's face as she typed. "Are you settled in? I'm handling some things near your school. How about I meet up with Sophia and you can get to know each other better?" I felt disheartened. My mom treated Sophia so well, but Sophia only wanted to exploit my parents, using my name to show off and deceive people. I was going to agree to the meeting, but then decided to gather more evidence against Sophia before telling my parents the truth. "I've got something to do, maybe another day," I replied. When I glanced up, Sophia was looking smug. I casually said, "May your luck always be this good." Her face immediately darkened as though she wanted to retort, but her phone rang just then. "Sophia, I'm near your school. Do you have time to grab coffee?" It was my mom's voice, and Sophia had the audacity to play it on speaker. She strutted out with her handbag, leaving the roommates to drop the subject. I quickly organized my clothes and rushed to the research lab. Gathering dirt on Sophia was secondary, my main focus was on my project. At the lab, I ran into Leo, the guy my family had introduced to me. My family didn't need to arrange marriages to secure business alliances, but my mom insisted I shouldn't marry someone random. She'd found the Leo family, whose background was similar to ours, and even showed me pictures of him. I'd rejected the idea, citing my studies as an excuse. At the entrance of the lab, I exchanged a few brief words with Leo before heading inside. To Sophia, though, this was a big deal. The way she glared at me, you'd think her eyes were capable of murder. If looks could kill, I'd be dead 100 times over. Sophia strode over with the air of a queen catching her husband with a mistress, immediately linking arms with Leo. Her gaze fixed sharply on me, as if she were dissecting me with her eyes. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she left with Leo. Behind them, some classmates in the research lab commented, "Sophia, the heiress of the Liu family, marrying into the Zhao family, what a powerhouse alliance the business world is in for some serious upheaval." I couldn't figure out whether Leo was dating Sophia out of genuine affection or just for the sake of a family alliance. Honestly, I hoped it was the former. If it were for the latter, I feared Leo would regret it deeply when he found out Sophia wasn't the real heiress. Not that I could blame him for not recognizing me as the true Liu heiress. I simply couldn't stand attending those pretentious social gatherings. My mom would always nag me. "Look at Sophia, she's always by my side at events. When will you ever make time to accompany me?" Now that I think about it, Sophia attending all those important events with my mom has led everyone to assume she's the only daughter of the Liu family. But honestly, Leo and Sophia are like two peas in a pod perfectly matched in their flaws. In the end, I should probably thank Sophia. Without her, explaining the whole arranged marriage candidate situation to my parents would have been a headache. As I approached my dorm, my mom called, asking me to come home for dinner over the weekend. Since I'd just started at this school and had a lot on my plate, I declined. "You know, you should be more like Sophia and spend more time with me," she said. I wanted to tell my mom straight up that Sophia wasn't as wonderful as she seemed, but the words got stuck in my throat. When I opened the dorm door, I froze. My clothes were scattered all over the floor, and several expensive dresses had been shredded to pieces. I scanned the room. There was only one person in the dorm, a girl lying on her bed playing video games, occasionally spouting vulgar insults. Her tone was full of malice. I walked over, grabbed her phone, and tossed it aside. "What's your problem? Are you crazy? If I lose this game, it's on you," she snapped, clearly irritated. I pointed at the mess on the floor. "What's going on here?" She replied dismissively, "It wasn't me, I don't know." Then she turned back to grab her phone. Her response made me both angry and amused. I hadn't been out of the dorm for very long, and she was the only one here. Was I supposed to believe someone broke in to rob me and only me? I fixed my gaze on her, and under the pressure of my stare, she seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact and looking away. Seeing her reaction, I decided to threaten her. "Think carefully before you answer. Are you sure you don't know? These clothes aren't cheap. Combined, they're worth close to 10,000, a significant financial loss. If I report this to the police and they check the security cameras and there's no sign of outsiders, everyone in this dorm will be investigated." Her face turned pale, and then paler still. Suddenly, as if something clicked in her mind, she said, "Who are you trying to scare? Your clothes don't even have tags or recognizable brands. Besides, Sophie's family is rich, and her boyfriend's family isn't short on money either. Ordinary people can't intimidate her." Oh, so she basically admitted it. In my 20-plus years of life, I never thought I'd find myself a victim of bullying. And the irony? I'd only moved into this dorm this afternoon and barely exchanged words with these people. I didn't even know their names. The only instance of interaction was my disapproval of Sophia's behavior, which led to me saying a few extra words. Such childish, bored individuals. We're in college, yet they're still playing these ridiculous bullying games. Well, let's see how far they're willing to go. Later that evening, Sophia returned to the dorm wearing a brand new dress. "Take a look, girls, how does this look? I didn't even want it, but Leo insisted on buying it for me," she bragged. I glanced at it briefly. It was a new release from a Parisian designer, priced in the 5 figures. The other roommates immediately started fawning over her. Wow, it's gorgeous. Your boyfriend is so good to you. Looks like a limited edition piece. Regular folks like us could never afford something like that. You're so lucky, born into wealth and dating a rich guy. Of course, Leo made a little mistake this afternoon, and to make up for it, he bought me the dress. I told him I already forgave him, but he insisted. I'm not like some people who come from humble beginnings, yet dream of marrying rich only to end up with nothing but a pile of rags. Sophia's mistake must have been Leo briefly talking to me. Sophia turned to me with an air of superiority and asked, Lily, since you share the same last name as me, if you beg me, maybe I'll feel generous enough to give you a couple of dresses. Since when did sharing a last name become a reason for Sophia to condescend to me? So, you're admitting it, you're the one who destroyed my clothes? I asked. Sophia rolled her eyes, finally confessing outright. Yeah, so what? Tell me how much they're worth and I'll pay you back. I didn't hold back. Do you even have enough to cover the cost? Are you serious? Sophia's family is wealthy and her boyfriend is too. Your cheap clothes are probably worth a couple $100 at most. What wouldn't she be able to afford? One of the roommates chimed in before Sophia could respond. Sophia, what do you think? Of course, I can pay for it, just some cheap stuff, she replied, her arms crossed, still acting superior. All right then, I hope you stick to your word, I said with a smile, glancing at the red dot on the recording app on my phone. My clothes are all brand new, and I still have the receipts. I expect full compensation at the original price. I sent the receipts to Sophia via my assistant. Soon after, Sophia bombarded my phone with calls. Lily, are you crazy? Extorting me over some cheap clothes? How could they possibly be worth $10,000? These were all exclusive, custom-made pieces. If you don't believe me, you can take the receipts and verify them yourself. Over the years, excluding the financial support from before, she lived in my home for 3 years, and my parents spent over $30,000 on her, not to mention my luxury items, though I didn't give her any cash directly. So now, she's unable to pay me back. Check the address and the brand clearly. I don't want to waste time talking to idiots. Afterward, I instructed my assistant to send her a lawyer's letter on my behalf, demanding repayment within a month, or she'd face legal consequences. I thought Sophia would finally behave, but unexpectedly, my mom called me that evening. Lily, is Sophia facing some trouble at school? My heart skipped a beat, fearing my mom might tell Sophia that I'm her real daughter. No, why do you ask? Nothing much, she just called earlier, crying uncontrollably. When I tried to ask her what was wrong, she wouldn't say. I thought you, as her roommate, might know something. I have no idea, but Mom, you've been supporting her for so long. How much longer are you planning to do that? If she asks for money again, don't give her any. And as for my things, stop giving them to her. Mom agreed readily, but I knew she had a soft heart. In the following weeks, Sophia's hostility toward me became blatant. Every time I returned to the dormitory, she'd make snide remarks. I wasn't shy to clap back. If you're so bold to throw shade at me here, maybe you should focus on paying back the money. And your boyfriend, he doesn't seem great either. Can't even spare a measly $10,000 for you. Around that time, Leo started giving me the cold shoulder in the lab, glaring at me like I'd offended him. My classmates secretly asked if I had provoked Leo. I shook my head. Offending Leo's girlfriend, does that count? Unable to scrape together the money, Sophia turned her attention to my mom again, fabricating stories about being mistreated by a new roommate and claiming her family had encountered issues, needing to borrow $10,000. Thankfully, Mom remembered my warning not to give Sophia any money and called me to confirm. Are you guys having some misunderstanding? She seems like a good kid, Mom said. Mom, I'm not mistreating her. In fact, she's the one being passive-aggressive toward me. As for her family problems, it doesn't seem like there's anything serious happening. You agreed to sponsor her education, not act as her family's ATM. Mom saw my firm attitude and didn't press further. All right, then we'll just cover her tuition fees, nothing else. I didn't waste my time on irrelevant people and devoted myself entirely to the lab. One night, after finishing an experiment, it was already late, and a heavy rainstorm had started. I didn't have an umbrella. Scrolling through my phone contacts, I realized I barely knew anyone at this school. Calling someone to pick me up was out of the question. Running back to the dorm would leave me completely soaked. As I deliberated, the light around me dimmed. An umbrella was suddenly held above my head. I turned around and looked up. Ethan. Yeah, why didn't you let me know you were back? I felt a bit awkward explaining. My past with Ethan was somewhat messy. If it weren't for this research project and my curiosity about Sophia, I might never have returned. Ethan was still as considerate as ever. Seeing that I didn't want to answer, he didn't press me further. Under his protection, I wasn't drenched at all. In contrast, Ethan's clothes were soaked halfway through. Sitting in his car, I was surrounded by awkward silence, fidgeting with my fingers, unsure how to start a conversation. Ethan broke the silence first. Come with me to a place. I'll drop you off afterward. I nodded, too embarrassed to refuse. It was a private gathering, mostly people from our social circle. I never expected to run into Sophia here. She wore a revealing outfit and was perched on the lap of a young heir, her fingers intimately wrapped around his neck, her seductive expression leaning in to kiss him. The crowd around them cheered, enjoying the show. The flirtatious atmosphere was abruptly interrupted when Ethan and I walked in. The young heir immediately stood up to greet Ethan. Sophia, left stranded on the floor, still held her provocative posture. When she looked up and saw me, the expression on her face was as if she'd swallowed something vile. I returned her look with a faint smile. As Ethan took his seat, the other young heirs one by one came to greet him. Ethan glanced at them casually and said, "Everyone sit down." I obediently sat beside Ethan, waiting for the gathering to end. When I was little, I loved being carried by Ethan and always demanded kisses, declaring that I'd marry him when I grew up. Later, I discovered Ethan would bring different girls to our gatherings every day. Angrily, I stopped attending any of these events. My crush, which had ended before it even started. Forget it, no point dwelling on it. Ethan took a sip of red wine from the table and glanced at the young heir, speaking casually. Who let stray cats and dogs into our gathering? Other than me, Sophia was the only new face at the event. It was obvious who he was referring to. The young heir hurriedly escorted Sophia out of the private room. Upon his return, he pledged, "I'll never touch her again." This time, she was desperate for money and came on to me. So Sophia had resorted to this to scam money. Truly astonishing. The gathering wrapped up shortly after, and Ethan drove me back to school. "Are you just going to let her use your name to deceive people?" Ethan asked. "I've already told Mom that I won't be supporting her anymore, nor will I be involved with her in the future," Ethan said casually, leaving out the part where he had asked her for money. He wanted to maintain a good image in front of me. "How did you know I was back?" I asked. "Word got around that you're planning to marry Leo. I didn't believe it, so I did some digging," Ethan replied coolly. I let out a laugh. "I don't believe it either. But you're at the age where you should start thinking about it," Ethan said, fixing his dark eyes on me with a seriousness that made me uneasy. His handsome face was so close to mine that it was hard to look away. Feeling flustered, I quickly thanked him and dashed into my dorm building. As soon as I entered the dorm, my 3 roommates began eyeing me with curiosity and amusement. "No wonder your clothes are so expensive. Turns out you're selling yourself," one of them said, clearly trying to provoke me. I stayed silent, focusing on putting away my stuff and getting ready for a shower, which only gave them more ammunition. "Look at her, she can't even deny it. Must be embarrassed to admit it. Your parents would be so ashamed of you if they knew." I finally shot back, and I wonder who was dressed like that, sitting on some guy's lap and grinding away. Sophia snapped, storming over to me and throwing my wash water at me. "You dare accuse me? I was forced," she yelled. Not one to back down, I slapped her across the face, then grabbed a basin of water and poured it over her head. "Who's selling themselves? You know the answer deep down." The roommates quickly stepped in, pulling Sophia away while attacking me verbally. "Sophia has a boyfriend and they're very much in love. And you? Sneaking off to bars with rich guys in the middle of the night? You're clearly up to no good," I smirked. "Keep talking. The truth will come out eventually, and I'll enjoy watching you eat your words." The noise from our argument soon attracted the dorm supervisor, who wanted to escalate the matter to the school administration. Sophia, however, didn't want things to go that far and apologized with a forced smile. "This was all just a misunderstanding. Lily was joking with me. No need to trouble the supervisor." Another roommate rolled her eyes, clearly frustrated. Don't let her scare you. We'll testify for you. Look at the mark on your face, Sophia quickly countered. I did that to myself accidentally. It has nothing to do with Lily. Since Sophia didn't want the matter investigated and I hadn't suffered much, I decided to let it go. But I couldn't stay in the dorm anymore. Remembering Ethan's mention of an available apartment near the lab, I decided to move in there. I wasn't expecting Sophia to show up again. Early the next morning, she stormed up to the lab entrance, raising her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist midair. "What's your problem?" I asked coldly. Apparently, Leo had found out about the incident at the bar and wanted to break up with her. Sophia assumed I was behind it. "I really don't have that kind of time," I said, letting go of her hand. "Maybe you should spend more energy figuring out how to win him back." I turned to leave, but Leo appeared just then. He ignored Sophia completely and walked straight to me. "Good morning, Lily. Why aren't you heading in?" I blinked in surprise. Was this really Leo talking to me? Sophia erupted in rage. "It's you, it has to be you. You've been spreading rumors and trying to steal my boyfriend." She lunged at me again, but Leo held her back. I didn't have time for their drama. With my research nearing completion, I was preparing to leave the country for good. Soon, I wouldn't have to deal with any of them. Dad, who was back from a business trip, asked me to come home for dinner. Missing him, I agreed, and he arranged for a driver to pick me up from campus. To my surprise, the driver showed up in a Rolls Royce. "Dad, isn't this a bit much?" I asked when I got in. "Can't a father show off for his daughter once in a while? What do you think? Pretty cool, huh?" "Cool. Very cool," I replied, silently praying he'd never do anything so flashy again. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. After dinner, Dad had the driver take me back to campus in a Cullinan, loaded with gifts. Feeling stuffed, I lay on my bed scrolling through the campus forum later that night. And there I was. The headline read, "Exchange student Lily allegedly kept by a millionaire," accompanied by several incriminating photos. Pictures of the Cullinan and Rolls Royce. A snapshot of me at the bar with Ethan. Another of the apartment I just moved into. The comments were brutal. "Throwing yourself at rich guys at such a young age? Disgusting. That man could be her father. Where's her shame?" Others were sarcastic. "Look, folks, this is how you climb the ladder. Take notes. Why bother studying? Just learn how to bat your eyelashes properly." Then there was Sophia's tearful plea. "We were so kind to her, and this is who she really is. Leo and I broke up because of her. Leo's a good guy, he's never flirted with anyone else, but ever since meeting her, he's been distant. I told him I'd wait for him if he ever comes back. But she's ruined everything." My roommates chimed in as well. "Yeah, Sophia mentioned it in the dorm. Lily even hit her over it. She's awful, we wasted our kindness on her." Sophia had always flaunted her status as the daughter of a wealthy businessman at school, but to her credit, she'd never used it to bully others. Now, though, all bets were off. Lily was practically adored by everyone, thanks to her sweet and charming appearance coupled with her warm and approachable personality. Sophia must have reached her breaking point to expose this on the forum. "We need to help her," and just like that, I became the school's pariah, with everyone turning against me. I quickly took screenshots of the post and sent them to my parents. "Me, Dad, yesterday when you picked me up from school, someone secretly photographed the car and driver, then uploaded it to the campus forum. Everyone is attacking me now. Dad, who's spreading rumors? Talk to your school administrators about this. Me, you know the person, it's Sophia." The status showed typing for ages, but no message ever came through. Clearly, Dad was at a loss. I then sent the photo to Mom. Mom immediately recognized our family car, the driver, and of course, me in the photo. The next moment, my phone rang. "Leela, who took those photos to smear you, did one of your classmates misunderstand something?" "It's Sophia. She claims I stole her boyfriend, Leo." "Leela, she probably didn't mean it. Why don't you both come over tomorrow night? Let's clear this up face to face." Weeding out trouble is best done early, and confronting lies is no exception. I scrolled through voice recordings of my past confrontations with Sophia. Tomorrow would be the day to play them. After wrapping up a day of experiments, Leo cornered me outside the lab. About Sophia's post on the forum. "I'm sorry. It's not your apology I need. I've got things to do, goodbye." As I turned to leave, Leo grabbed my arm. "I broke up with her." "Oh, sorry, but whoever you date has nothing to do with me." Out of nowhere, Sophia appeared, charging straight at me to slap me. Leo stepped between us, taking the hit himself. "Sophia, enough, we're done. Know you're being deceived by this vixen, she's just desperate to be a mistress. I've met your parents, and they like me too. I had no interest in these trivial domestic squabbles." I turned and walked away. Back at the dorm, I was packing my last few things when my roommate, as usual, couldn't resist her sarcasm. "Wow, moving again? Which guy's place this time? Don't you worry about catching something, bouncing between men like that. I've got a cousin at the hospital. Want me to introduce you? I'll give you a discount for friendship's sake." Unable to tolerate the mockery any longer, I snapped back. "And you think you're so virtuous? You're just a bunch of bullies following Sophia's lead. Without her, you're nothing." Speak of the devil, Sophia stormed into the dorm, furious and silent. She started rummaging through her closet until she found a plain outfit to change into. I couldn't fathom her intentions, and neither could my roommate. "What's going on with Sophia?" "Nothing. My parents called and want me to come home. They'll definitely stand up for me, so I'm dressing modestly to win their sympathy." Ah, the classic manipulative strategy. Her skills were truly unmatched. "Right, and maybe throw on some pale makeup too. Who knows, they might even expel someone for you." Since when did my parents have the power to expel anyone? Sophia shot me a glare. "Just you wait, I'm marrying Leo." With that, she stormed out of the dorm. I called Ethan to accompany me home and explain the situation about the apartment. From afar, I saw Ethan leaning casually against a Maybach, dressed in a navy blue suit. The sunlight bathed him in a golden glow, creating a picture-perfect scene. Ethan took off his sunglasses and walked toward me. "Ready to go. You're practically drooling." I wiped my mouth instinctively, there was no drool. "Ethan, stop teasing me, but he did look exceptionally handsome today, and I couldn't help stealing a few extra glances." At a red light, Ethan caught me staring. "If you keep looking at me like that, I won't be able to focus on driving." Embarrassed, I turned away. "Ethan, why are you driving such an eye-catching car today? That's not like you." It's to make Sophia eat her words. "But seriously, which do you prefer?" A conversational dead end, no doubt. When we arrived at my house, I spotted Leo and a wealthy trust fund kid from before. Feeling puzzled, Ethan spoke up. "I invited them. Everyone's here, so let's head in." The housekeeper opened the door. "Miss, you're back. The master and madam are waiting in the living room." I nodded, and the group followed me inside. In the living room, Sophia was seated next to my mom, sobbing dramatically. "Auntie, she's so awful. She stole my boyfriend and bullied me. I only argued with her a little, and she even hit me." Mom let go of Sophia's hand as soon as she saw me. She stood up. "Leela, you're home." Then she noticed the entourage behind me. "Ethan and Leo, you're all here together." I stepped forward. "Mom, Dad, I'm back." "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson." Ethan and Leo greeted politely. After the greetings, I naturally took a seat on the couch beside Mom. Dad invited everyone else to sit and asked the housekeeper to serve tea. Sophia looked at me again, her eyes filled with undeniable shock. "Why is it you?" My dear roommate, surprised. "I am the only daughter of the Liu family." Sophia glared at me with a venomous gaze. "Why did you never say anything?" Dad spoke up. "What's going on with the campus forum? I'd like to know too." "Sophia, care to explain?" Sophia's face was pale, whether it was too much makeup or something else. I couldn't tell. Her expression resembled someone who had just swallowed a bug. She remained silent for a long time. Leo was the first to speak. "I'm sorry. I heard from my family that they plan to arrange an engagement between me and the Liu family's heiress. I assumed it was Sophia, but when I found out she wasn't the heiress, I immediately broke off the relationship." "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Liu. Please give me another chance." I had never been interested in Leo, and with this mess, there was no way I'd have anything to do with him. Sophia, hearing the real reason for the breakup, suddenly burst into laughter. "Ha, so you're just another gold digger. The moment you realized I wasn't rich, you dumped me, truly heartless. I thought I hid it well without any flaws, yet you still found out." Sophia went crazy, pointing at me. "It was you. You must have ratted me out. You just want Leo for yourself. Sorry, Leo is not my type, and I couldn't care less about a rich girl's title." "It was me," a wealthy guy stood up and said. "I just found it odd, a supposed heiress constantly needing money and resorting to sketchy means to get it." Later, Ethan mentioned something suspicious, so I looked into it. I didn't tell Leo directly. I merely sent him the photos from that night at the bar. What happened after that was beyond me. I was curious too. You kept asking me for money, but I never heard the Liu family was facing financial issues. Upon investigation, turns out you were fake. And isn't that your fault? Always asking me for money, Sophia had completely lost it by this point, trying to rush at me, but Ethan stopped her. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Of course, Leo made a mistake this afternoon. To make up for it, he bought me a dress. I already said I forgave him, but he insisted on buying it. I'm not like some people who come from nothing yet dream of marrying into wealth. In the end, they're left with nothing but scraps. Lily, since your last name is Liu too, beg me, and maybe I'll be generous enough to gift you a couple of outfits. So, my clothes were ruined by you? Yes. Tell me how much they cost, I'll compensate you right away. Do you think you can afford it? Oh, come on. Sophia's family has money, her boyfriend has money. Your flea market clothes are worth, what, a couple $100s? What's unaffordable about that? No wonder your clothes are so expensive. Turns out you're selling yourself to afford them. Hit the nail on the head, haven't we? Embarrassed to admit it? Imagine if your parents found out you're selling yourself. How sad they'd be. Lily is such a slut, flirting with Leo while also cozying up to old men. Watch me ruin her reputation. I've taken so many photos. I'll post them on the campus forum right away. My parents called and want me to go home. They must be ready to stand up for me. I'll dress modestly. They'll pity me even more. Exactly. Put on a pale makeup look too. Best if we get someone expelled. HMPH, just wait, I'm marrying Leo for sure. The recording played over and over. Sophia's face turned even paler. Do you have anything left to say? Sophia collapsed to the ground, silent for a long time. My parents looked at me apologetically. We're sorry you had to endure all this. Mom just wanted to find you a companion we never expected. Sophia staggered to her feet, laughing bitterly. Haha, it's all your fault. If it weren't for your sponsorship, I'd have dropped out of school early, married some random guy from the mountains, and none of this would have happened. Now you've given me a taste of the rich life, and you want to kick me out. No way, look at the storage room at home, so many luxury items just sitting there, such a waste. I only took a few, and you won't let me have them. And the closet full of clothes, you don't even wear them, what's wrong with me giving them away? Resentment toward wealth is a sickness, and it needs treatment. We sponsored your education and provided good conditions, but somehow that's our fault? My usually silent dad finally spoke up. Education has always been your own responsibility. You reap what you sow. You used to perform well academically and had decent character. How did it come to this? You care only about grades and nothing else. My only mother fell sick and needed $3,000 for hospital fees. I couldn't scrape it together, so I left. And where were you at that time? I fought hard to get into college, only to find $3,000 isn't enough to buy one of your shoes. What's the point of trying so hard? Why is it that people like you are born at the top of the pyramid? I just want to marry someone rich, change my life, is that so wrong? What's wrong is you people. Ethan's father was unaware of the deeper reasons behind Sophia's mother's passing. For a moment, he seemed lost in memory. We have sponsored so many kids, thinking you were pitiful and gave you the most care. He paused, his voice sharp with disappointment. In the end, I couldn't even get a single thank you, only endless complaints, he scoffed bitterly. Ungrateful, thankless wolf. Return all the money we've given you. He raised his hand to cut her off. Tomorrow, I'll arrange for our lawyer to send you a legal notice. Leo added with a smirk, and don't forget the $10,000 you still owe me. Sophia stared at us in disbelief. Suddenly, as if realizing something, she fell to her knees and clung to my mom's pants. Auntie, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I'll delete everything on the campus forum and publicly apologize. Please, Auntie, don't push me to the edge. I really have no money to pay you back. She sobbed. I'm sorry, Lily. I've wronged you. Watching the tears slide silently down my mom's face, I realized that she was lamenting years of wasted care and affection. Leave now, my mom said coldly. I'll have the legal notice sent to you as soon as possible. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Walker, called security, who dragged Sophia out. Leo and the other wealthy kids bid farewell and left as well. I hugged my mom playfully and said, I'll stay home with you for a few days. After that, I'll be heading abroad. She teased gently. You're always thinking about going abroad and your career. When will you bring a boyfriend home? Ethan, who had been unusually silent, suddenly appeared with a bouquet of roses and carnations. Mrs. Smith, do you think I'd make a suitable candidate? What was this guy up to? Why hadn't he left, and what did he mean by that? Could it be because I stole a kiss from him when we were kids? My cheeks flushed as I buried my face in my mom's shoulder. My mom glanced at me, then at Ethan. We're getting old. Your generation should decide these things for yourselves. Ethan smiled warmly. It's my first time visiting, so I wasn't sure what you'd like. I brought a little bit of everything. Just then, the doorbell rang, and Ethan's driver arrived with several people carrying numerous expensive gifts. The gifts were piled high on the table, and I suddenly felt like I'd been tricked. This guy had planned everything ahead of time. My dad invited Ethan into his study, while my mom and I sat on the couch. That Ethan seems quite impressive. What do you think? My mom asked casually. I hesitated. He was indeed remarkable, and I'd liked him for a long time. But every time I thought about him being like all the other wealthy kids, my feelings wavered. Mom, let's talk about it later. Seeing my reluctance, my mom didn't press further. She asked Mrs. Walker to prepare dinner, saying we should treat Ethan well. After dinner, Sophia went viral on the campus forum, dragging me into the spotlight as well. A video showed Sophia crying pitifully, saying, Lily, I'm sorry. This is all my fault. I was petty and followed you, taking photos to smear your personal life. I posted them on the forum, causing harm to your reputation. I sincerely apologize. I'm sorry. Her apology seemed more forced than heartfelt. As expected, I became the center of attention. Under the video, countless internet users tagged me furiously. This is how you bully people into submission? Money really talks, turning black into white. Lily's influence is scary. Even the Liu family fears her. Others tried to comfort her. Sophia, don't let her intimidate you. We're on your side. I chuckled at their ignorance. How could people this clueless have even gotten into college? Sophia then started a live stream, claiming she had been treated unfairly. She hoped to use public opinion to suppress me, but she'd forgotten that I held damning evidence against her. I immediately contacted a former classmate, a top-tier hacker. Together, we extracted recordings from my phone and secretly embedded them into Sophia's phone. The moment she went live, the recordings would play automatically. The recordings captured explicit moments coded for discretion, but still recognizable as Sophia's. The more censored the content, the more people let their imaginations run wild. Within minutes, the truth was clear to everyone. Sophia dared not go live again. Simultaneously, I compiled the entire incident, from start to finish, and anonymously posted it on the campus forum to clear my name. Leo commented under the video, revealing that Sophia was a disadvantaged student sponsored by the Liu family, while I was the Liu family's rightful heiress. As expected, the post shot to the top of the forum's trending list. Sophia's reputation was utterly destroyed. She even came to confront me, demanding answers. How could you do this to me? Feigning confusion, I replied, I haven't done anything. You absolutely did. You're the only one who had access to the recordings and videos. You must have done it, she accused, her voice trembling with rage. I remained calm. Didn't this all start because of you? Weren't you the one who posted on the forum to smear my name? I merely ensured everyone saw the complete picture. What's wrong with that? I sighed. You should have just repaid the money earlier instead of stirring up unnecessary drama. Turning away, I added, talking to you any longer would be a waste of my time. Suddenly, a shout rang out. Lily, watch out. I turned back just in time to see Sophia plunging a fruit knife into Ethan's side. Blood gushed out. Ethan, are you okay? Call 911. Sophia hadn't managed to hurt me but pulled the knife out and attempted another attack. Fortunately, nearby students restrained her. Campus authorities, police, and an ambulance arrived quickly. Thankfully, Ethan's injury wasn't too severe and he recovered after a few days of rest. Unfortunately, Sophia wasn't as lucky. She was expelled from school, and her 20-something years of hard work went down the drain. She was sentenced to 5 years for intentional homicide, and after her release, she still had a debt of over $20,000 hanging over her head. It seemed unlikely she'd ever recover from this. Then again, who knows? Maybe she'd return to her old ways to make a living. Whatever her future held, I didn't have the energy to think about it anymore. What's most important right now is tomorrow's wedding, yes. The groom is Ethan. The day I saw him collapse in a pool of blood for my sake, my heart that once wanted to turn him down wavered. After he was discharged from the hospital, Ethan proposed to me, and without a second thought, I said yes. We exchanged vows under the stunning Indian Ocean views at a resort in Bali. The sky, sea, and beach came together to give us the perfect wedding. May the rest of our lives be filled with happiness. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. I found myself in an alternate world where I became the tragic female lead in a melodramatic novel. The plot promised nothing but heartbreak. My husband, Ethan, was destined never to love me. But here's the twist. I was cursed. If I didn't love Ethan, I would die. What could I do but embrace this ridiculous fate? My solution? Widowhood seemed like a viable option. On the day Ethan's beloved Luna returned, he coldly ordered me to pack my things and leave the house. Apparently, Luna couldn't bear to see me, even for a moment. Ethan, my husband in this bizarre world, was the epitome of a bad seed. Shamelessly cruel, especially to me, the supposed leading lady. Yet, as the ever-dutiful wife, I had to love him regardless. Everything I did revolved around him. So, upon receiving his text, I promptly vacated the villa and began assembling a peculiar posse. First, Chloe, a college student Ethan had met at a bar. She came from a struggling background and worked nights to make ends meet. Second, Ruby, a D-list actress infamous for her lack of tact. Her career had been circling the drain until Ethan swept her off her feet, catapulting her to stardom in the entertainment industry. Last but not least, Zoe, the spoiled and eccentric little sister of Luna. Since childhood, Zoe had been obsessively infatuated with Ethan, despite her bratty tendencies. These women shared one striking similarity. Each bore a vague resemblance to Ethan's true love, Luna. And so, when Ethan returned home with Luna, they were greeted by the sight of me standing at the door with this motley crew. We looked like a lineup of hotel greeters, all smiling eerily at the pair. Ethan and Luna froze, utterly bewildered. I offered them my most cheerful smile and began my introduction. "Miss Luna, nice to finally meet you," I said, stepping aside to reveal the women behind me. "Allow me to introduce my husband's other companions, his third, fourth, and fifth mistresses. I've heard that their resemblance to you is the reason my husband chose them. Isn't that proof of how deeply he loves you?" I clasped my hands together, feigning a dreamy expression. "From now on, I hope we sisters can work together to take great care of Ethan and live harmoniously as one big family." Luna burst into tears on the spot. Frankly, I didn't understand her reaction. After all, in the original story, I was the one who was supposed to cry. The script should have had me kneeling on the floor, clutching Ethan's pant leg, and begging him not to kick me out. I would have pleaded to stay, even as a mere servant, just to remain by his side. But Ethan? He would have coldly pushed me away like trash, while Luna crouched down with a mocking smile, telling me I deserved my fate. Their love was eternal, and I was just a disposable pawn in their romance. Now the tables had turned. Luna sat on the sofa, glaring at Ethan with disappointment etched on her face. "I went abroad to study for a few years. I didn't die. How much does a plane ticket cost? Are international calls really that expensive? You didn't visit me, didn't contact me, yet stayed here collecting a harem of women. Is this what you call love?" Ethan was speechless. He eventually crouched down beside her, holding her hand and professing his love. "Luna, of course, I love you. I missed you so much that I couldn't bear the pain, which is why he gestured toward the other women, turned to them for comfort. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Classic trashy romance tropes. If Ethan had kept his pants zipped, how else would he have tortured me emotionally? In the original story, Luna's return marked the beginning of Ethan's transformation into a reformed man. He would pay off these other women to leave and focus his cruelty solely on me. But now, I had gathered his entire entourage together, plunging his pursuit of Luna into chaos. Unable to placate Luna, Ethan turned his anger toward me. "You again, you're doing all this just to stir up trouble between Luna and me, aren't you?" My dear husband's misunderstanding stung my delicate heart. As a devoted wife, how could I not feel hurt by his accusation? With teary eyes, I choked out, "Ethan, how could you think that of me? As your wife, it's my job to make you happy, isn't it? I know it's because you miss Miss Luna so much that you chose these women, so I brought them all together for you. From now on, you can love any one of them, or all of them. I'll support you completely." I turned to Luna, adding, "Miss Luna, you love Ethan too, don't you? If you love him, you should give him freedom. Let him be happy, satisfied, and carefree. How can you throw tantrums and fight with him?" I walked forward, grabbed her hand, and said sincerely, "You need to be like me, turn a blind eye, and only then can you be a qualified and perfect wife." Sophia blinked her eyes repeatedly, clearly disgusted by me. She was Ethan's Luna, his one true love, with absolute strategic advantage and lethal charm. So, she flew into a rage, acting high and mighty to force Ethan to kick those other women out, and swore that from now on, she'd be the only woman in his life. Of course, Ethan was more than willing. He couldn't be happier. He even issued an eviction order to me, demanding I leave immediately. But as a qualified wife, it was my duty to take care of my husband, even if he wanted me gone. No way I was leaving. After all, my sole mission here was to disgust him to his core in the original story. Ethan brought Sophia back home one evening, and that night, sparks flew. They had quite the wild time. Not only that, but the next day, Sophia deliberately complained in front of me, saying my husband was so strong that he had worn her out. Thinking of all this made me seethe with rage. That night, when Sophia and Ethan were passionately kissing by the staircase, almost about to go further, I barged in, opened the guest room prepared for Sophia, and thoughtfully made the bed for them. When I came out, Sophia and Ethan were staring at me with complicated expressions. Ethan was so furious that the veins on his forehead were bulging, and he demanded to know what I was doing. Looking innocent, I replied, "Making the bed for you. Aren't you and Miss Sophia planning to rest?" I paused and added, "Honey, your health has always been delicate. The mattress can't be too hard or too soft, or else your back will hurt." I changed all the bedding to ice silk sheets. You and Miss Sophia will definitely sleep comfortably. Finally, I smiled at him and said with a ghostly tone, "You don't have to thank me. It's just what I should do." Ethan was utterly deflated on the spot. He and Sophia stood awkwardly for ages, unable to take the next step. Seeing Ethan stiffly standing there, I asked with concern, "What's wrong, honey? Have you been working overtime too much lately? Are you feeling out of sorts?" I even pulled out a bottle of special medicine from behind and recommended it to him. "Luckily, I thought ahead for you. 1 pill a day, and I guarantee both you and Miss Sophia will be satisfied." When Ethan saw that bottle of medicine, the veins on his forehead became even more pronounced. He held back for a long while before gritting his teeth and spitting out the word "leave." Ethan called the bodyguards and housekeepers, instructing them to pack my things and forcibly throw me out. Me. Oh dear, my husband wants to kick me out, but as a perfect wife, how could I bear to leave? Dragging my luggage, I spent the night at a hotel. To win back my dear husband, I specially called the media and went with them to Ethan's mansion. In front of the cameras, I cried my heart out, showing sincere remorse. "Honey, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have let Miss Sophia find out that you keep girlfriends on the side, nor should I have let her know about your inadequacies." Sniffling, I tried to defend myself further. "But I did it all for you. Have you ever seen a wife bring home her husband's mistresses? Or seen a wife personally prepare the bed for her husband and another woman? To help you impress Miss Sophia, I even thoughtfully prepared medicine for you." The more I spoke, the more upset I became. To show Ethan my sincerity, I turned my face directly to the cameras and said, "I don't know where I went wrong. Come out and tell me, and I'll change everything, okay?" As expected, Ethan got a call from his company about the incident and rushed home in a panic. He was absolutely livid. Jumping out of his car, he stormed over, grabbed me by the neck, and stared at me with bloodshot, beast-like eyes. "Olivia, do you want to die?" I smiled bitterly at him and said, "It's okay. If you want to strangle me, go ahead and do it now." Ethan had always portrayed himself as a devoted husband in front of the media. After all, we were in a business marriage, and according to the original story, all his actions could be explained as a calculated move to secure his inheritance. To save his reputation and dignity, he was exceptionally kind to me in public, even hiding his mistresses so well that no one knew. Seeing Ethan suddenly lose his mind, the media obviously wouldn't miss such explosive headlines. They immediately turned their cameras on us in unison, and I cooperated perfectly by saying, "If it will make you feel better, you can kill me now." The news spread online and caused a sensation. Opinions from netizens were sharply divided. Some thought Ethan was a scumbag, someone who was ungrateful and two-faced a wolf in sheep's clothing. Others thought I was hopelessly in love, clinging to Ethan despite everything. They suggested I learn from Ruby and live off the land. Of course, there were also those who believed I was doing it all on purpose, being sarcastic, and calling in so many media outlets just to publicly expose Ethan's true colors and avenge his betrayal. All I can say is, these people have no understanding of my mindset. As a devoted wife, I love Ethan to death. There's no way I'd want to expose him or ruin him. The reason I caused such a public spectacle was entirely to show Ethan my sincerity. As for the subsequent media frenzy, well, let's just say my 3 years of being a love-struck fool left me a bit brainless. I ended up shooting myself in the foot, turning both myself and Ethan into laughingstocks. At Ethan's estate, he was utterly furious, smashing everything within reach. Sophia sniffled and whimpered in grievance. "What do we do now? Everyone is calling me a home-wrecking fox. How am I supposed to go out in public after this?" Ethan glared at me with hatred in his eyes, determined to mobilize the top PR team of his company to navigate this crisis. And so, they demanded that I step forward to face the public and the media, to clarify the rumors and help rehabilitate Ethan's and Sophia's reputations. Oh, sorry, I mean my dear husband and his beloved Luna. Of course, I was more than willing after all. Only by doing this could I pull off an even bigger scheme. Sadly, Ethan didn't trust me much. Before the press conference started, he threatened me ominously, "Follow the script. If you dare say anything off script, you know what will happen." I was well aware of Ethan's methods. In the original story, the heroine was tortured mercilessly by him, subjected to all kinds of confinement and domestic abuse enough to keep lawyers flipping through criminal law sections for days. I replied with a sweet smile, "Don't worry, darling. If it helps you, I'm willing to die for you." At the press conference, Sophia sobbed pitifully, her tears flowing like a tragic heroine's. Ethan, on the other hand, wore the mask of an eternal good guy, exuding deep affection. Through her tears, Sophia said, "Ethan and I have known each other since childhood. We're just old friends. Our relationship isn't what Liv is imagining. I don't understand why she dragged me, an innocent person, into this. I just hope everyone will judge rationally and stop spreading these rumors." I quickly chimed in, yes, those are all just rumors." Afraid of saying something wrong, I turned to Ethan for reassurance, asking, "Darling, am I saying this correctly?" Ethan was absolutely livid, shooting me a death glare before turning to the media to apologize. Here's what happened. My wife and I had some disagreements earlier. She tends to overthink things. Coincidentally, Sophia had just returned from abroad, and I, being a friend, went to pick her up at the airport. But my wife found out? Ethan paused deliberately, leaving his words hanging in the air before continuing. It was my wife's impulsiveness that dragged an innocent person into this situation. I ask for everyone's forgiveness. To show my loyalty to my dear husband, I quickly echoed, Exactly, I was just spouting nonsense. Sophia and my husband have absolutely no special relationship. Please don't speculate or dig into their past. Let's put an end to this matter right here." After saying that, I turned to Ethan again, asking, "Darling, am I saying this correctly?" Ethan's gaze grew colder, his eyes dark and filled with an unsettling chill and murderous intent. I felt a bit scared and tugged at Ethan's sleeve, pleading, "Darling, I've done everything you asked. Please don't be mad at me anymore, okay? I truly understand my mistake. I promise not to meddle in your affairs anymore. Unfortunately, some things don't end just because I want them to." The internet users didn't miss the chance to dig deeper into the juicy drama. Soon enough, someone uncovered the details of Sophia and Ethan's history. Although Sophia carried the last name of her family, her status within the family was low and disgraceful. She was, in fact, an illegitimate child. Years ago, her father reunited with an old flame and rekindled their romance, leading to Sophia's birth. Her mother always claimed she wasn't after her father's money. But when Sophia was about 7 or 8 years old, she brought her daughter to the family's doorstep, demanding recognition. The family treated the matter as a scandal and kept it under wraps, which is why people believed Sophia to be the true heiress of the family. Ethan and Sophia grew up as childhood friends, but given Ethan's family's wealth and status, there was no way they'd allow someone like Sophia, a child born out of wedlock, to marry into the family. Sophia fought tooth and nail, but ended up offending Ethan's family. Not only did she fail to marry into the family, but she also lost her place in her own household. Under pressure from Ethan's family, Sophia's family sent her abroad under the pretense of studying abroad. Later, Ethan's parents tragically passed away in a car accident, leaving Ethan a young and inexperienced man to take over the company amidst chaos. Coincidentally, he met Liv, who was hopelessly in love. Liv sacrificed herself and her family to turn Ethan from a struggling young heir of a bankrupt family into a powerful and ruthless CEO. With this bombshell uncovered, the internet users became even more engrossed in the drama. The online backlash against Ethan and Sophia intensified. Eventually, Ethan and Sophia were forced to make another public statement, admitting that they did have a past relationship, but that it was long over. Now, they claimed, they had buried the hatchet, each going their separate ways, she on her sunny path, he on his solitary bridge. They insisted they had nothing to do with each other anymore. Their press conference had just ended. Sophia and Ethan had spent a fortune hiring PR teams to clean up their reputation, finally managing to salvage a bit of their public image. But then, Sophia's half-sister, Zoe, completely lost it. She went online and posted intimate, flirtatious photos of herself with Ethan, tagging him directly. "Ethan, you're quite the actor, huh? Look at this photo and ask yourself honestly, who am I to you?" Zoe had always been a little unhinged. Unlike the other women Ethan had tangled with, who were mostly after his money, Zoe was in it for love and the man himself. So, Ethan's usual tactic of paying women to keep quiet didn't work on her. In fact, his deliberate attempts to distance himself only infuriated her further. Why did Zoe suddenly go off the rails? Well, some internet sleuths had dug up evidence suggesting she might be one of Ethan's mistresses, or maybe the third, fourth, or fifth. Ethan, however, vehemently denied it, insisting that his kindness toward Zoe was purely because she was Sophia's sister. Naturally, this enraged Zoe. After all, the whole messy situation with their mother, who had orchestrated the arrival of a half-sister into her life, had already left Zoe feeling suffocated. Over the years, living in the same household with Sophia, who constantly undermined her both overtly and covertly, had worn her patience thin. She had grievances against Sophia to begin with, and now Ethan had the audacity to claim that his kindness to her was purely out of obligation to Sophia. And so, the fiery heiress, with her volatile personality, exploded. She was determined to drag Ethan into the mud with her, ready to go down together if necessary. Faced with Zoe's relentless attacks, even Ethan was starting to feel uneasy, afraid that one wrong word or action on his part might provoke her into another fit of madness. But I couldn't just sit by as a devoted wife. It was my duty to protect my husband when he was being wronged. So, I confronted Zoe head-on, asserting firmly that if she had any real evidence, she should present it and stop trying to fool people with what looked like poorly photoshopped images. To control the narrative, I even hired a small army of PR agents to flood Zoe's social media comments with insults. And then, Zoe actually dropped a bombshell. An unedited, high-definition video featuring Ethan's unmistakable face. It spread like wildfire. I was completely dumbfounded when I saw the video. Ethan, furious, demanded to know what I had done. Tearfully, I explained, "Honey, I didn't mean for this to happen. I just couldn't stand her insulting you, and all those people online were attacking you too. I was so angry. I had no idea she had actual evidence. Why weren't you more careful when you were with her?" As the public backlash intensified, Sophia had no choice but to return home. I wasn't sure what she said to her family, but somehow, the Sue family managed to rein Zoe in. While the internet was still buzzing with drama, Zoe's account went silent. Gradually, the hype began to die down. When I saw Sophia at the hospital, she looked pale and frail, her wrists wrapped in layers of bandages. Apparently, to make the Sue family take her seriously and restrain Zoe, Sophia had gone as far as self-harming. Tusk, All that just to protect Ethan. She was willing to risk her own life. I knew it. Sophia and I were cut from the same cloth. We both had the makings of the perfect wife. When she saw Ethan, her beautiful face was streaked with tears as she choked out, "Ethan, now you know how much I love you, don't you?" She demanded Ethan divorce me and marry her instead. Ethan, of course, was more than willing, practically ready to sign the divorce papers on the spot. As a devoted wife, how could I not support my husband's happiness? But I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia's intentions were less than pure. What if she was only after Ethan's wealth? So, to protect Ethan's assets, I suggested dividing his property. I proposed that he transfer a significant portion of his wealth to me for safekeeping. I gazed at Ethan with heartfelt sincerity and said, "Honey, I don't trust that this woman truly loves you. Think about it. What if she takes all your money and runs? What will you do for the rest of your life? Here's an idea. Why don't you transfer your assets to me? I'll keep them safe for you. That way, if anything does happen..." I paused, then looked at him earnestly and added, "I will always be your strongest support." Ethan, clearly under Sophia's spell, flatly refused to hand over his assets and instead told me to get lost. Seeing my beloved husband so misguided, as a devoted wife, I had to think of his best interests and find a way to stop him. So I hired a lawyer and presented Ethan with a few conditions. First, I wanted the majority share of his assets, including our house, savings, and company shares. Second, I proposed a trial period to assess whether Sophia's feelings for Ethan were genuine. Until the trial period ended, I would not sign the divorce papers. Third, to ensure Sophia could take good care of my dear husband, I insisted on living with them during the trial period. Of course, if Sophia was willing, I'd even share my expertise and teach her how to be the perfect wife. In the end, I delivered my ultimatum with what I called heart-wrenching determination. If Ethan didn't agree to my terms, we'd go down together, dragging each other into ruin. Then, with a deep and affectionate gaze, I said to Ethan, "Ethan, you know how much I love you. If we walk the road to the afterlife together, I'll consider it a blessing." Maybe my heartfelt words finally touched Ethan as he agreed to my conditions. However, I heard his situation hasn't been great lately. After the scandals involving Sophia and his various mistresses surfaced, the image he had painstakingly built completely crumbled. His company has also nosedived. Rumor has it that the board of directors, led by Victor, has been holding meetings to discuss suspending Ethan's duties and cutting ties with him to protect the company's interests. When Ethan is in a bad mood, he tends to drink. And when he drinks, he has a habit of seeking comfort from women. In the past, when Sophia wasn't around, Ethan would turn to his mistresses to vent his frustrations. Now that Sophia is back, but recovering from her injuries, Ethan, who loves her deeply, would never vent his frustrations on her. Instead, he's gone back to finding other women. He wouldn't dare mess with Zoe, and Ruby is too much of a hassle, being a public figure. If he got caught with her, the fallout would be massive. So, naturally, he turned his attention to Chloe, the young student. As a devoted wife, seeing Ethan in so much pain breaks my heart. How could I stand idly by? Driven by the spirit of sacrificing others to ensure my husband's comfort, I dragged Sophia out of the hospital. Sophia protested furiously, struggling against me. "What are you doing, Olivia? Have you gone mad?" I crossed my arms and looked down at her with an air of authority, declaring, "Ethan is in a bad mood and needs a woman's company right now. Aren't you his one true love? True love isn't just talk, prove it, go and comfort him this instant." When I brought Sophia to Ethan, he was entangled with Chloe on the couch, caught in a moment of heated passion. The sight of Sophia made Ethan freeze in shock. Sophia, on the other hand, stared in disbelief, her eyes wide and brimming with tears. She accused him, "I've done so much for you, and you go behind my back to find other women?" Tusk, tusk. I knew it. She's not what you'd call a dutiful wife. To teach Sophia a lesson, I immediately slapped her across the face. "Sophia, what are you doing? Speaking so loudly to my husband, what if you scare him?" I didn't hesitate to lecture her. "So what if Ethan has a few other women? It's only because he loves you that he uses them as substitutes. Otherwise, why would he only pick women who look like you? You should feel honored to be loved so deeply by Ethan. How dare you get jealous and cause trouble for him?" Ethan apologized to Sophia, explaining that he loves her too much. During her time studying abroad, he missed her terribly, and his emotions overwhelmed him, leading him to seek substitutes. I quickly chimed in to support him. Exactly, my husband misses you so much, yet you couldn't be by his side. That's your fault. Why blame him? Ethan promised Sophia that he would handle the situation with the mistresses and, from now on, be devoted to her alone, loving her deeply for the rest of his life. I was so moved that I immediately turned to Sophia, saying sternly, "Did you hear that? Ethan is willing to make such compromises for you. You should be thanking him." Sophia's face twisted in conflict before she ran off crying. But a supporting character is just that, a supporting character. If she can tolerate being the other woman, there's no limit to what else she can endure. A few days later, Sophia, looking frazzled and defeated, came to Ethan, saying she'd thought it over and was willing to give him a chance. Ethan was thrilled, swearing he'd love her forever, cherish her, and make her the happiest woman alive. This time, he couldn't wait to marry Sophia. To make it happen, he even agreed to some compromises during the division of assets, throwing money at me to get me out of the picture. But am I someone who's in it for the money? My love is reserved solely for my dear Ethan. The only person I care about is him, so I made my own demands of Ethan. I agreed to let him marry Sophia, but on one condition: our marriage would remain intact. We wouldn't get divorced, but would keep our marital status as it was. Sophia was livid, questioning me, "How can we be together if you won't divorce him?" I shrugged and said helplessly, "You can still have your wedding, Miss Sophia. All you want is an official title, isn't it? We're willing to give you that. I just can't bear to part with Ethan yet. I want to spend more time with him. What's wrong with waiting until a trial period is over before I divorce him? Look, I'm willing to divorce him eventually for you too. You say you love Ethan so much, surely you can wait a little longer, right?" After much hesitation, Sophia finally agreed, as did Ethan. However, when their wedding date was announced, it caused a massive uproar online. The two of them, those shameless lovebirds, Ethan and Sophia, were bombarded with insults from countless netizens. But clearly, Ethan and Sophia had decided to embrace their infamy, throwing caution to the wind. After all, their affair and Ethan's history of keeping mistresses were already indisputable facts. As the saying goes, when the debts pile up, you stop worrying. When the fleas multiply, you stop itching. So what's a little online bullying compared to all that? Ethan is about to marry Luna, his first love. As a proper and supportive wife, I naturally feel happy for him. Not only that, I personally took charge of organizing their wedding. And let me tell you, I went all out to make it an unforgettable event. I invited countless media outlets, celebrities, and influencers to livestream the wedding. Cameras were set up everywhere to ensure a flawless, 360-degree broadcast. But on Ethan and Luna's wedding day, I uncovered a shocking secret. Turns out, while Sophia was abroad, she had an affair with another man behind Ethan's back. Sophia, as it happens, is an illegitimate child in the Sullivan family. The Sullivan patriarch only rose to prominence thanks to Zoe's mother's efforts, so it's clear where Sophia's standing in the family lies. Years ago, Ethan's parents pressured the Sullivans to send Sophia overseas and issued a strict order to Ethan. She must never set foot in the Carter household as his wife. So when Sophia returned to the U.S., Ethan was powerless to stop her. She had to rely on someone else. Back in the day, aside from Mr. Sullivan, Sophia's mother had another confidant, Victor. Victor was deeply in love with her, and after her passing, shifted his attention to Sophia, who bore a striking resemblance to her mother. Sophia didn't have an easy time abroad. Victor secretly arranged everything for her, showering her with money and support, all without hesitation or regret. Over time, Sophia was moved by his devotion. To repay him, she even slept with Victor and ended up pregnant. But Victor had a family of his own, and their relationship was complicated and awkward due to familial ties. Naturally, the child couldn't be kept. Instead, the pregnancy became a bargaining chip for Sophia to leverage Victor's influence to negotiate with the Sullivans and bring her back to the U.S. In other words, she deceived Ethan all along. Now she wanted to use my husband as a fool to clean up her mess. As a dutiful wife, I couldn't bear to let Ethan suffer. Armed with evidence and witnesses, I stormed into the wedding and confronted Sophia live on camera. Good news! Sophia's reputation was utterly destroyed. I exposed her vile schemes, and the Sullivan family completely abandoned her. Mr. Sullivan even slapped her in public and kicked her out of the family. Bad news. Due to the overwhelming presence of media, celebrities, influencers, and the countless cameras capturing every angle, the entire world now knew Ethan had been cheated on. The ridicule was merciless and relentless, drowning Ethan in shame. My dear husband, fragile as he was, fainted on the spot from sheer humiliation. At the hospital, I sat by Ethan's bedside, tears streaming down my face. His hands trembled uncontrollably, akin to a sieve, as if he had lost all control of his body. The doctor informed me that Ethan had suffered a stroke due to the shock and would require surgery to recover. However, holding Ethan's hand, I said tenderly, "Ethan, surgery means cutting you open and operating on your brain. That's too terrifying. I can't bear to see you suffer even the slightest pain. So let's not go through with it, okay? Don't worry, I'll stay by your side no matter what, even if you remain like this forever." Ethan was undoubtedly moved, his forehead veins bulging as he struggled to sit up and thank me. I gently pressed his shoulders back down and pulled out the property transfer agreement from my bag. "See, I told you before, didn't I? That woman only wanted your money, which is why she stayed with you. Thankfully, I'm smart and had you sign this transfer agreement ahead of time. Don't worry, I'll look after your assets for you. You just focus on recovering, okay?" Ethan was so overwhelmed with gratitude that he fainted again. Given his poor health and the daily medications and IV treatments, I couldn't bear to see him suffer anymore. So I promptly discharged him from the hospital and brought him home to care for him myself. As I wheeled him out of the hospital that day, I said cheerfully, "Honey, medicine always has side effects, and I love you too much to let it harm you. I know you felt confined in the hospital, so let's go home and relax. I'll make sure you have plenty of delicious food to nourish you. I'll get you healthy and back on your feet in no time." Ethan, however, began a hunger strike, adamantly refusing to eat. I knew he didn't want to burden me. He felt that in his current state, staying alive would only drag me down. But that's okay, I was determined to stand by him. Ethan spent sleepless nights, one after another. I knew he must have been thinking about Sophia. So I went out of my way to gather updates on Sophia's whereabouts and reported them to him regularly. After being expelled from the Sullivan family, Sophia's situation grew dire. At first, she tried to rely on Victor, but Victor, whose family had been torn apart by her scandal, and who faced pressure from his fierce wife, naturally refused to have anything more to do with her. As a result, Sophia was cast out yet again. But no worries, she's still young and beautiful, and carries the title of Ethan's former woman, so she remains quite popular in certain circles. I installed a small TV in Ethan's room, playing photos and videos of Sophia with different men every day, right in front of his face. To make sure he wouldn't get bored, I had the content updated weekly, ensuring there was always something new. Ethan seemed quite moved by this. Once, he was so emotionally stirred that it became a medical miracle. He dragged his paralyzed body off the bed and fell to the floor. He desperately stretched out his hand, pointing toward the TV. I knelt down, sniffled, and choked back tears, asking, "Ethan, do you think the TV is too small? I'm so sorry, it was my oversight." That very afternoon, I replaced the TV in Ethan's room with a massive projector. Now, not only could you see Sophia's face in crystal clear detail, but even the hairs in her nostrils were sharply visible. Seeing how energized Ethan became after seeing Sophia, I began to suspect that this might be the key to his recovery. So I had those photos and videos play on a 24/7 loop. Good news, Ethan finally stopped liking Sophia. Even when he saw her with other men, he just stared blankly at the projection screen, his expression lifeless and unresponsive. Bad news, maybe I overdid it. Ethan started suffering from sleep deprivation, and his mental state worsened. In the end, I threw myself onto his hospital bed, sobbing, "Ethan, I know you're struggling right now. Every day is like living hell for you. It's okay. You can go. Even if it means I'll have to be a widow, I'm willing to bear it." But Ethan refused to die, clinging to life with every ounce of strength he had left. I knew it then, my husband must truly love me. He couldn't bear to leave me alone, couldn't stand the thought of me being lonely after he's gone. He was holding on for my sake. But no worries. As a devoted and understanding wife, how could I let my husband struggle so much? That day, I brought another man home. He was a young man in his 20s, sweet and obedient, and better looking than Ethan. But my heart belonged only to Ethan. The only reason I brought another man home was to put Ethan at ease. Gripping Ethan's hand, I introduced my new beau to him. "Ethan, do you see? I've found someone I like now. He treats me so well. So please don't hold yourself back because of me. Don't suffer on my account. If you feel like leaving, just go. After you're gone, I'll live a good life with him." I sniffled and added, "After all, you've left us with so much money. I'll definitely live a very happy life for the rest of my days." Finally, Ethan, reluctantly, closed his eyes for good. When the man I loved passed away, as his devoted wife, of course, I was heartbroken. At Ethan's funeral, I cried so hard that I lost my voice and even dropped his urn, shattering it on the ground. Not only that, but I also invited all his mistresses Luna, Zoe, and Ruby to come to the funeral and bid him farewell. Even after my husband's death, I was still so considerate of him. Truly, I am the epitome of a perfect wife.